Hey everybody, greetings from the internet. This is Jaron. I hope you're doing really well. Okay, so if this is your first time watching, or if you haven't watched in a while, I just wanted to remind you, we don't want you to watch this by yourself. We want you to watch with your siblings, and especially with your parents. So in a minute, we're gonna play a game, and you might need your parents' help with this. There's some reading involved, so if you're not like super fast at reading, you're definitely gonna wanna go get your parents. So pause this, go get them, and then come on back. So the game we have today is called Guess Who. And all you have to do is guess the Bible character, right? So we're gonna have some trivia. You're gonna see a series of statements about this character, and you gotta figure out who it is. That's all it is. So you'll see about 3 to 4 clues that'll pop up one at a time, and that'll be your last chance, and then it'll reveal the character, okay? So you guys ready to play? the story we have today, it comes out of John chapter 11, and it's another one of Jesus' miracles, right? We've been talking a lot about that. And I'm going to do something that you're really not supposed to do, right? So you're not supposed to give away spoilers, right? Like if you've seen a movie and your friend hasn't, like you don't talk about it around them. You don't tell them the ending until they've had a chance to see it, right? You don't do that. You don't do spoilers. Well, I'm going to break that rule today. I'm going to tell you the end of the story first, because I want you to know kind of where we're headed, all right? So spoiler alert, here we go. The end of the story, Jesus raises Lazarus back from the dead. He brings Lazarus back from the dead back to life, right? That's the end of the story. That's where we're headed. That's how it ends, okay? All right, let's jump back to the beginning. This starts out in John chapter 11. It starts out in the very first verse. It says, "A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured the expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was sick. So the two sisters sent a message to Jesus, telling him, 'Lord, your dear friend is very sick.' But when Jesus heard about it, he said, 'Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this.' So, although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days." All right, so we start the story, and this guy Lazarus, he's sick, right? And this is not, like, he doesn't have the sniffles, like, he doesn't have just a cold, like, he is really, really sick, like, to the point of death. His sisters, Mary and Martha, are really worried. Now, they all know Jesus well. These guys are, like, really good friends with Jesus. Every time Jesus comes to town, like, he typically stays at their house, because he doesn't, like, he just lives on the road, and so he always stays at their house. Like, it references a story about Mary later where Jesus is teaching, and this woman comes in and like washes his feet and then dries his feet with her hair and then pours this like super expensive perfume. Like this was Mary. This was her. They're really close. They're really good friends. They believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So they've got this really close relationship. They consider each other really good friends. And so Lazarus gets really sick. And so Mary and Martha, the sisters, they get word to Jesus because he's not in town, he's somewhere else, and like, Jesus, you got to come right away because Lazarus is really, 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 really sick. Now, Jesus knows the end of the story, right? He knows how this is going to work out, and so he's like, guys, it's fine. Like, I know they said come right away. Like, it's gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. And so, like, he's like super confident right now. Like, everybody else is making this big deal. He's like, no, it's fine. And he actually is so confident. He's like, it can wait. Like, we're in the middle of something. So he stayed where he was for 2 more days. That's how confident he was that this is all going to work out. And so we jump down to verse 17. And in verse 17, it says, "When Jesus arrived at Bethany, he was told that Lazarus had already been in his grave for 4 days. Bethany was only a few miles down the road from Jerusalem, and many of the people had come to console Mary and Martha in their loss." So Jesus rolls into town, and he gets there. Again, he had waited for 2 days, and then he headed there, and it wasn't close. Like, it was kind of a long journey. And so he gets there, and he finds out that Lazarus is dead. And not only is he dead, he's been dead for 4 days. So they had the funeral, they did all the stuff, and then something they do in the Jewish culture is they observe this week-long process of mourning, of grieving, where, you know, like, it's after you have the funeral, right, and then you go home and you stay home for a week. For a week, you're home, you don't do anything else, and you're just sad. You grieve, you mourn, you cry, you kind of process through everything. And during that time, everyone that knows you, friends, family, everybody that knows you, they kind of take turns coming to your house and just being with you, and they cry and they grieve with you, like they mourn with you, and so, like, your house for the next week, like, you don't go anywhere or do anything, but everybody just kind of comes to you and just spends some time with you, grieving alongside of you. So that's what Jesus walks into, right? He walks in, and they've already had the funeral. That was 4 days ago, so they're right in the middle of all of this process of grieving, of mourning, right? And so they find out he's there. And in verse 32, it says, "When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, 'Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died.' When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. So that's kind of strange, right? He has this moment where he sees them all grieving and stuff like that, and he gets angry. Like it says, a deep anger welled up within him. So I want us to talk about that for just a minute, because that's kind of an interesting response. So as a family, talk about, why do you think he got angry? Like what was that coming from? What was that all about? So we see Jesus get angry, and we're going to come back to that. I want to talk about that, but first I want to kind of finish up the story, because I already kind of spoiled it for you. I already told you what was going to happen. So they go out to the tomb where he was buried, and they get there, and Jesus says, roll the stone away, right? Like they don't bury people in the ground; they're more like caves, and so they roll big stones in front of them to kind of close it off. And so he says, roll the stone away, and the people that are there like, Jesus, I don't think you want to do that. Like he's been dead for 4 days. It's kind of a hot climate. Like it's gonna stink. They basically tell him like, don't do that. It's gonna smell really bad. And he just kind of, it's like, it's fine, guys. Just trust me. I got this. Roll the stone away. And so they roll the stone away. And he takes this moment. He kind of looks up toward heaven and he prays to God. And then he yells into the tomb and he says, Lazarus, come out. And out walks Lazarus. He's still wearing like the wrap, the stuff that they buried people in. He's still wearing that, but he comes walking out of the tomb. He's been dead for 4 days. And here he is back to life, that Jesus raised him back to life. Now, remember, I told you that's how the story was going to end. And so you knew, and Jesus knew. Jesus knew what was going to happen. He was completely confident, I'm going to raise him back to life. He knew that's what he was going to do. So with that in mind, I want to jump back to that verse where Jesus got angry and talk about what was going on there, because he knew what was going to happen. So what was that response all about? So I'm going to read that again, but actually there's a verse that I didn't read the first time, and I'm going to include it this time. So it says, when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you put him? He asked them. And they told him, Lord, come and see. Then Jesus wept. That is so interesting to me, that Jesus wept. He cried with them. Right? If you don't know, weeping is more than just like kind of crying, like just being sad. Weeping is like that. It's just wailing, just loud, like that ugly cry kind of thing where you just like, you're a mess. Like that. Jesus wept with them. He knew how the story ended. He knew Lazarus was going to be okay. But there was this moment in the story where he kind of stopped and he looked at Mary and Martha, and he saw how sad they were. Like they were grieving the loss of their brother. And Jesus looked around, he saw all the mourners, all the people that were coming to comfort them. And he wept. His heart went out to them. He felt what they felt. That's such a cool thing, because again, he knew how it was going to end. He knew it would all be okay. He knew there would be no point in grieving. In just a little bit of time, he was going to raise Lazarus back, and it was going to be all undone. And yet, he wept. He cried with them. If I'm super honest, there's times when I have a problem praying. I have a hard time praying about certain things with God because there's like the little voice inside me that says like, do you think God really cares about this? Like there's things that happen in the world that are so huge. And I know like God is like this, ultimate creator being that sees it all and knows it all. And so like, he's got big stuff that he's dealing with. And so when kind of like, small stuff happens to me, there's this feeling sometimes of like, is this like, does God really care about this? Like, this is not a huge deal. Like if my car breaks down and I have to pay to get it fixed and it's more expensive than I thought it was going to be. It's like, dang it, that really? And so I want to pray and God, can you help me out here? But it's one of those like, does God really care? Like, come on, like this is not huge. In the grand scheme of everything that's going on in the world today, this is not that big of a deal. Like that's my tendency is to think that way. And then I remember this story that Jesus, he knew what was going to happen. He knew that he was going to raise Lazarus back from the dead. He knew that all the mourning, all the grieving, all the crying, everything that they were feeling was going to go away, that everything was going to be fine in just a few hours. And still, he cried with them because God cares. God has compassion. Like when his heart goes out to us. When we feel sad, so does God. He gets it. When we're happy, it's not that he doesn't just understand that we're happy. He's happy along with us. When we're lonely, when we're confused, when we're frustrated, whatever we're going through, he's there. He feels it too. Like his heart goes out to us. Jesus wept because he saw that they were sad and he was sad right along with them, even though he knew it was gonna be okay. It was gonna work out. The sadness was gonna go away. In that moment, he saw that his friends were sad and it made him sad because he cared so much about them. And the same is true for you and me. God cares. He has compassion for us. So don't ever think that you can't talk to God about stuff. Don't ever think that there's something too small for God to really care about. Because even though God knows the end of the story, even though God knows how it's going to work out and that you're going to be okay, the fact remains that you're going through stuff, and whatever you're feeling, God, he's right there with you and he feels it too. He cares about you. He loves you. And so his heart goes out to you. So don't ever think that God doesn't care. Don't ever think that there's something you can't talk to God about because it's just not a big deal to him. That's not how it works. Jesus wept. He knew the end of the story, but he still wept. Let's pray together. God, thank you. It's crazy to think that you're such a big God and you see so many things, and there's a whole world and a whole universe out there. And it's kind of weird to think that all the little stuff that happens to us on a daily basis, you see, you're there, you care about, God, because you care about us. God, when we feel happy, when we feel sad, when we feel frustrated or angry or whatever it is, God, you're right there with us. You feel it because we feel it. God, you have compassion on us. You love us and you feel what we're going through and you care. God, thank you. Thank you that we can pray to you, that we can talk to you about anything. Because there's nothing too small. There's nothing you don't care about. Because God, you love us and you just want to hear from us and you want to walk with us and do life with us. Thank you so much for that, God. We love you. It's in your son's name. Amen. All right, guys. I hope you have a great week. I love you guys so much. I'll see you soon.